What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to our show. We're going through the entire MCU before we get to the release of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness on May 6th. This is the rewatch. And we're watching Captain America: The Winter Soldier today. Or we just watched it. Max, this is top 10 for each of us.
Yes, sir.
Why is this film so good?
Lots of reasons. George, back to you. I'm just kidding.
No, you're going to talk for the full episode on this one.
Oh, okay,
on
cool.
that one question.
Well, then if I have the full episode, let me just preface for our viewers that whenever we do one of these, and we are filming them, day after day, so one a day, I'm either going up to Connecticut or George is coming down to Washington, D.C. every single day. So there's lots of commuting. So please watch our videos.
We're putting in all the effort, as you see by the Zoom backgrounds we always have.
Yeah. Right now, we are in a neutral location. This is the one exception. I'm not sure why that ended up happening. Maybe schedules didn't quite work out. But
anyway, Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yes, Captain America. I was just getting to that, George. Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
The reason why I go to DC is just to recreate the scenes.
George just wanted to see the Triskelion. Don't we all? Anyways, Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
I wish it were real.
I really do wish it was real. It's such a sick building, and the movie is incredible. It's so well paced and well acted. It's a very grounded film, which is something you've heard both of us say a number of times, either in episodes of Unqualified Filmbros or even of episodes of the Rewatch, where we just noticed that some of the best films in the MCU are those that have a story that is really rooted in realism. And, obviously we're not coming into superhero and comic movies looking for realism, but it's hard for me to say that it doesn't make an impact in the
when there's
the movie.
When there's something realistic that's tangible that you can grab onto as an audience member, and this goes beyond just the two of us, it's something that we can connect with.
Sure.
It makes the movie more accessible for us, which in turn makes it a little bit more enjoyable. That isn't to say that the more fantastical or the more, mystical, otherworldly projects aren't great. We love those. But these ones, low to the ground, very gritty, realistic superhero movies have an appeal. And this is, case in point, this is the best of those, or one of the best of those.
Yeah, and I think that's the strength of the final two Captain America films, and even the trilogy as a whole, and sort of the strength that I can speak to is that the stories are so human. They're so realistic and so sort of a part of something that I could pull something from to identify with. And I think that's really important when it comes to a storytelling perspective.
Yeah. So you mentioned the second and third Captain America films there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Joe Johnston directed the first Avenger. This is our first taste of the Russo brothers. It's the second MCU script written by Marcus and McFeely after Thor: The Dark World. What do you think of this work by the Russo brothers in their first go as MCU directors? I mean, it's a pretty great first attempt.
I would say pretty great, and I would go even further to say that it was a spectacular first entry for
Agreed.
the Russo brothers. You get the vibe of sort of a 70s, 80s spy thriller, but it's taking place in the 21st century, which for all of the characters that we follow throughout the MCU, I think Steve Rogers is the one that you'd want that kind of juxtaposition with, right? He's a man out of time. Have it be a film where you bring in elements from spy thrillers, like old spy thrillers, but putting it into a modern setting. That just makes sense. And then you toss in Robert Redford as sort of a throwback kind of actor and a casting who also delivers a pretty great performance too.
Fantastic performance as Alexander Pierce.
Oh yeah. but have him be sort of an old school style villain with no superpowers. You know, his superpower kind of is unlimited resources in his mind. And, you know, then you've got yourself a fantastic film right there. You've got all the right throwbacks in the right moments, and then putting it into a modern setting.
Yeah, and it's not even just putting Steve Rogers into this situation. It's also who you're putting in his supporting cast.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Nick Fury and Maria Hill sort of juxtaposed with Alexander Pierce. Then you're bringing in Natasha Romanoff, who is now in her third appearance in the MCU after Iron Man 2 and the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to be a little bit more of that seasoned veteran that she, becomes over the course of her time in the MCU. You've got Sam Wilson, Anthony Mackie's debut as the Falcon. I think that this film, and we'll talk about Sebastian Stan in a minute, but I think that this film, as much as it gets its strength from its story and from its direction, because as you said, the pacing and the rhythm are exceptional, it gets a lot from its cast too. The performances here are so strong. You get that riffing, that good sense of rhythm, the chemistry between Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, and Anthony Mackie. You get these conversations that, yes, you've got a super soldier and an elite spy and a soldier with a wing pack, but you've got conversations happening like, I made breakfast if you guys eat that sort of stuff. Like you're getting these conversations that are very, very human, very real world. And I think that makes, as dramatic as a spy thriller is in this sense, it still gives us that classic MCU sense of humor through the way that the actors interact with each other in their characters.
For sure. And I'll just say that I think, to that point on humor, that we don't even get in this film some of the lesser and even cringier jokes that we might have gotten in some of the earlier films, right? The humor seems to fit within the narrative of the story and within the characters that are either saying or responding to said jokes. And I think that also adds to the realism and storytelling abilities of Marcus and Feely.
Yeah. So I said it a minute ago. I'm going to get into it now. Sebastian Stan returns as Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, in his first appearance. What do we think of this performance? Because he doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but he's a huge factor in the second and third acts of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly the third act. The second act is still kind of setting him up. But the third act of this film is Steve and Bucky in a situation they've never been in before, opposite sides. Chris Evans, we've talked about, and he's fantastic in this film as always. Sebastian Stan, he's playing an entirely different character. What do you think of his job here?
I think he did really well. You know, he's supposed to play at that point as the Winter Soldier, kind of a dead-eyed and brainwashed
But there's
character,
so much
because it's
acting with his eyes.
yes,
So much. You see the
yep,
anger, obviously the brainwashed anger, but you see
it's
some
rage.
yeah, it's absolutely rage
Yeah.
put in him by Hydra to make him this unapologetic killing machine. And that's essentially what he is a machine.
Mm-hmm.
But you've also, when he's fighting Steve on that third helicarrier, you're seeing pain. You're seeing human underneath the Winter Soldier. And I think, Seb gets a lot of really, he gets some undeserved flack, I think, for some of his performances in the MCU, like the first Avenger, Infinity War. Not his best performances, still pretty strong. But the Winter Soldier, in my opinion, that's his best that he's been so far. And I think he's a really, really strong actor, and he's perfect for this part.
I agree. And I think you're right that First Avenger and Infinity War might not be his strongest performances, but I'm also thinking about sort of what he was asked to do in those roles, which is to be a supporting character to Steve. And I don't just mean he doesn't get top billing and his name isn't up in lights in the same way that Chris Evans is, but the role is different. He's playing Bucky, and in First Avenger, he is quite literally a supporting character, right? He's there to support Steve and make sure that he doesn't get beat up in too many alleyways. In Infinity War, he's kind of just come back from being the Winter Soldier. Like, he's still getting out of that mentality, and he's getting used to being Bucky again. So I think that's okay. And Endgame, he was gone for 5 years, but in Winter Soldier and Civil War, he really gets to be. He gets that leeway, I think, and I think he gets that space to be able to figure out what kind of character he wants to be, what kind of relationship he needs to have with Steve, and whether that's consciously as Bucky or subconsciously as the Winter Soldier, it doesn't matter. That those two films are all about reestablishing a relationship between Steve and Bucky.
Yeah, because by that point, Steve's been out of the ice for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
He has thought for that whole time that Bucky's been dead since 1940, whatever, 1945, 44, whenever Bucky fell off the train.
Yep.
Yeah, strong performances across the board. Obviously, the Russo's direction improves the already elite storytelling of Marcus and McFeely. You get great additions to the cast in Anthony Mackie and Robert Redford. Just a really, really all told strong film. So what do you think in terms of your MCU ranking and your overall rating?
Sure. So this is going to be the highest that we've done so far, I believe, for me. Yeah. In terms of ranking, it is number 4 out of 32 projects. So very high, top 5. And so it deserves a top 5 rating. And with that, I will go with a 96. It's such a well-made film, right? So smart and honestly a very simple plot, but it's executed in a way that I think is top tier.
Well said. I did not expect that my overall rating would be higher than yours. We'll get to that in a second. But my MCU ranking right off the bat here is going to be 6 out of 32. I think there are just enough projects that I enjoy watching, and you guys know by now I rank and rate by how much I enjoy watching something, not necessarily by the quality, even though the two tend to overlap a lot. There are 5 projects, and I'm not going to name them now, that I enjoy watching more than the Winter Soldier in the MCU. But to that point, there are 26 projects that I don't enjoy watching as much out of the 32. So Captain America, the Winter Soldier, I'm going to go 6 out of 32. I didn't expect my overall rating would be higher than yours. I'm going to go 97 out of 100. This is my first technically A+ that I've handed out. I think 97 to 100 is that range, at least where I went to high school. So that's what we'll call it.
Same here.
Yeah, it's a tremendous film. So that will just about wrap up this latest episode of the Rewatch. We always thank you for joining us. We will be back tomorrow. We're going to talk about a really fun one, sort of the antithesis of this film, even though they're both awesome. We're going to talk Guardians of the Galaxy. We will see you tomorrow. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.